You were asked to do a medical series
I
at school. No, I just think that it's interesting that that coincided with these coming together. That was about the GI tract, I guess.
I was working on and I still am working on a project with a gastroenterology clinic at Texas Tech Health Science Center in El Paso, and so I'd gotten really interested in how we like picture our gut, which is like this, this system in our body that has so much to do with the way that we think and the way that we feel, and yet is so unavailable to us visually. And then Lando was going to have a gastroenterologist.
Yeah, very shortly after I got diverticulitis and had to be hospitalized and have surgery done.
And have a major surgery. Yeah. And so, Lando's gut in particular became like a major research interest for us, and in a very like harrowing
thinking about medicine and
way.
Our partner and grief and how people get through that is a big part of where the work comes from.
And so meanwhile, looking at just the history of medical illustration, we got interested in anatomical fugitive sheets or flap sheets, particularly from, I think the ones that we were looking at most were from the 16th century, where you have maybe the skeletal system, and then you have
endocrine system, and or just the bone, the veins and the muscles, those clear sheets you might find in a encyclopedia.
They used to be. Nowadays, you'll have like a thin acrylic sheet. Exactly. There's always that sort of aerial view, and you can peel back the layers of the body, and so the viewer or the user, and if it's in medical textbooks of old, they actually get to participate in like the flaying of the body with their own hands. And so we were wanting to make a series of layers and sort of think about these works as fugitive sheets. And so we began here with what is the sealed body, which has Lando sort of delicately making contact with his torso in a sort of tentative way. And then in the next two pieces, we were thinking...
This would be the second one we did, I guess, which is opened, which actually has like some ideas of psychic surgery and things like that happening in the middle. I'm not sure if you're...
Well...
Yeah, well...
No, you can talk.
Oh, you can do it.
No.
Well, psychic surgery is kind of this kind of practice, that it's not, medically based, it's not based in Western medicine, where they remove parts of cancers and things like that without actually breaking your skin. They go in there and magically remove all the bad stuff. So we kind of mocked up this area, but we've also mixed in some imagery of kind of fake organs that we created.
This is probably our first feat of like practical effects.
And the way that when you look at, like medical pictures, they'll show like big blue veins and like just a bunch of really colorful insides. I don't think it actually looks like that. So we had a little fun with making these imaginary organs and having those, raw, ungood parts being removed.
I think even if it is that dazzling inside inside the body, which maybe it is, we were thinking about how you come to have a concept of what's inside the trunk of your body. So much of where that comes from is either through the consumption of medical images or through like movies, through like horror movies and what it seems like it would look like, or looking at animal bodies, or dealing with meat. Like, how do we come to possess any imagery in our minds of what's in there? So we made some
images about not really knowing of what it's like inside. That's a big part of that.
And then we were thinking about how in this middle piece we were thinking about the actual surgery as it was described to us by the doctors that were going to perform it. So it was a laparoscopic procedure, and Lando had a wonderful medical team, and we were fortunate to work with wonderful doctors. But nevertheless, the procedure as described to us could only be highly abstract and still really hard to picture, like exactly what they are describing. We knew there were going to be small incisions. We knew there was going to be a larger incision. We knew that there were these sort of robotic instruments that were going to be part of this. And so in some ways, I feel like this work is like us admitting to sort of how much we don't understand about what was explained to us.
The background images are actually kind of, they're actual images of laparoscopic surgery that's going on in the back. We also thought it'd be fun to do kind of, primary colors for the triptych, blue, red, and yellow. But
that actually is like the one area that I think we will get into sometimes that we're happy to own, where we are drawing upon imagery of other people's bodies. It's like if we've got medical footage, that's a person there whose I think stomach was being operated on laparoscopically, and so borrowing those images is this sort of slightly complicated space, and that only happens so often in our work, where it's not our own flesh that's being described, but someone who we don't know.
It's hard to get exactly all the footage you need off of your own body.
There are limits.
There are limits. Although we do use some photos of my insides on some of
endoscopic images and stuff like that.
My last question for the series, and we can talk more about it in the next one, but is there anything you've learned in this process of going through a personal medical situation that you've learned that you can, for other artists, was it helpful for you therapeutically to turn your medical condition into an artist, into pieces like this?
I don't really see it as any kind of therapy for me, but it was definitely it was fun, not fun, but it was interesting to have conversations about somebody who's, experiencing it from the other side, to, talk to someone who's deeply cares about you, who's with you in the hospital, and how they're experiencing, you going in for any kind of surgery. The surgery I had isn't particularly dangerous or anything like that. A lot of people have that condition, but I mean, it is something that can go wrong, and so those are legitimate worries for any partner to have. I'm sure if anything happened to her, I would be losing my mind with worry, and so that's where a lot of the work comes from, I think, is, it's where we care so much for each other and each other's bodies and each other's health that we want to know how to deal with that, whether it be, psychologically, or how to get the best care, you can medically. So it's a little bit about that, but I don't know if it necessarily put me anywhere differently, therapeutically. Not that I was ever in a bad place, but
But it's a good question, and a useful one, because I feel like that one of the experiences that so many of us will have is navigating a major medical event, and hopefully everyone gets to have a partner and an advocate, and Lando was having this experience, and I was in so many ways so outside of the visceral experience of that. But I do think we got to do a lot of communicating through this, and have a lot of interesting conversations about what it is that we're all experiencing.
What is medicine? How do you give your body to someone else, and you got to trust them with it. There's a lot of that. This work began with just a couple of drawings. I drew these two figures of me from some old photography that we had, and part of this leg. And I just wanted to start there and see if we had anything to work from. After that point, we built it out as a collage on the computer. It was like, okay, we can we know that these two figures are roughly the same size, so we can build that out. And we talked about themes that were really important to us at the time, and we had just finished the Magdalene, but we wanted to explore that a little more, and we had some reverse images of that. From there, we looked at classical paintings. Maybe you want to pick it up from there?
Yeah. So I guess any time that you're about to embark upon the production of a painting or a piece of figurative art, going back and researching paintings produced in centuries past and the canon, and also what is outside the canon of painting is really insightful. And in a way, perhaps it's good to think about anything that you produce now as always being in dialogue with what's been produced before, or really what you're able to produce now is necessarily informed by the history that precedes it. And so, yeah, we were interested in studying how the events of Mary Magdalene washing Christ's feet with her tears and hair, how that had been depicted in the past. We found basically the painting that we've simulated in part here is one by a painter named Luca Giordano, an Italian painter from, oh gosh, I can't tell you what year this was painted in, but it's the 16th century, I believe. And we borrowed, cribbed parts of it. It's kind of a bizarre painting to us. Just has a lot of weird elements, a lot of expressive faces, a kind of high drama, which is maybe typical of paintings at the time. Big, broad architectural space. So we took that and we interleaved it with our own imagery of us performing this act and
kind of landing it right inside of our own dining room. So the edges and the floors and parts of the middle are actually our own home coming into the work. Then we just kind of got to drawing and painting, I guess, from that point.
We had to bring in these like two mannequin heads that are just weirdly part of the scenery in our house, I guess. And sort of figure out ways for this Giordano painting to come into contact with our imagery in a way that could be compelling and also strange. I think we're interested in how they don't fit together, maybe as much as where we're able to find continuity with that imagery. We manipulated our own photographs a lot. Obviously, there's a doubling of me and a twinning of Lando as we're trying to make this really unstable, kind of erratic scene where there's a lot of pleasure and a lot of action and
transitory, kind of between two worlds, and shattering of the floor.
Yeah, I think for young artists, like striking out into like professional life and producing their own work, I think staying brave is very important and staying ambitious. And if you have an idea, get started and then discover it. It's like you don't have to know everything up front. It's a process, and the work can evolve and your thinking can evolve, and but just get started. Like just get going. And incidentally, if you work on paper, you can cut it, and you can like re-stitch it together with something else, and it can take on a new life. Allowing yourself that flexibility, I find, is a great way to work, so that you're not constrained in the choices that you can make, and you can keep, you could. If you're working on paper, you can work forever. Like you just keep gluing and keep cutting and keep
on collaging.
There's an infinite potential to paper, and I think examine and reflect on your life and your interests, and do the kind of field work of looking back to history for insights and cues on how to you know, how to
Inspiration and
do the
staging,
inquiry.
anything like that,
Yeah, and talk to each other.
yeah.
Keep your friends or your beloveds in the process, even if you don't collaborate.
Yeah. I definitely don't start a piece thinking about how long it's going to take ever, because then I'll just...
Which is a luxury of
Sometimes
the
they
kind
come
of,
fast. Sometimes you finish them in like a few days, but sometimes they take a month or two. Like,
Yeah, and it is, you know, I feel like everyone's, like the shape of your life will determine how much time you have to put into the production of your work, and I think it just so happens with the way our art life and the rest of our life, if there's a line to be drawn between the art and the rest of your life, I think the way that all of that is organized for us right now, it's possible for us to pour months into one thing, but that's not always feasible for everybody, and you have to weigh your priorities and your goals. If you're trying to produce a whole body of work, you're going to have to think that differently.
And there'll be opportunities for some people, you know, if you're doing a residency where, you know, you can make several, like 5 or 6 giant pieces, you know, over the course of a month, because you have nothing else to worry about. You don't have to worry about going to work or school or, I don't know. So
perfect conditions.
Yeah,
there.
perfect conditions. That's why those places exist, really.
Yeah, it's an honor. I think we look for opportunities to show work in academic spaces, just because of the tie to education and to discourse. I mean, all of our work starts in conversations, and the whole, you know, that's also the point, is for it to go out into public space and facilitate conversations. And so I think, like, getting to show in an institutional gallery, and then in, like, I mean, just the incredible space that the Pollock-Krasner House is. It's a museum, and it's the preserved studio, and it's legacy, it's art history, it's like, and creativity, like all this stuff is all coming to bear in one place. And so getting to connect art historically and be in,
get people
in such,
thinking on all those levels about the work is really nice too. Yeah, that's a process, and you know, it's a way of life. It's not just a picture you made in like maybe.
And that really is and what sounds like an amazing thing that Matt is really undertaking in his work with the Pollock-Krasner House and Study Center, is the facilitating that dialogue between the work of Jackson Pollock and Lee Krasner and contemporary artists, and sort of seeing how that legacy is fed where we are now, and not only painting, but works produced across the whole spectrum of media. I mean, it's just, hopefully there's like a symbiotic thing about, you know, we get to have the honor and the joy of presenting our work and talking to people about it, and hopefully offering them something of value through the presentation of our work. And then, hopefully the Pollock-Krasner House and Study Center in Stony Brook, you know, get in turn to extract something of value from what we're doing.
Yeah. I am Lando Fremaux-Valdez.
And I'm Ghislaine Fremaux-Valdez. And our show is called Lovefeast, and it's held at the Avram Gallery at Stony Brook, Southampton, and presented in conjunction with the Pollock-Krasner House and Study Center. So I love that. I mean, given how much of our work is about, what takes place inside, in the private world of a relationship, and our own minds, and inside of our own bodies and everything. There's a lot of interiority and inner voice within that. This piece came into the world at a time where we were thinking a lot about cleansing. I guess that's sort of current throughout the show, but we were thinking about the bathtub as this sort of multivalent sign or signifier of cleaning,
preparing a body for an event, like whether it be surgery or some sort of religious ceremony.
Thinking about
The-
baptism, also the sort of erotic potential of that space, also the sterility. So we're thinking about what it is to bathe, and how much being cleaned or cleansed is related to the ways we think about being healed and being forgiven, and I guess just sort of that expanded notion of what it is to be pure, or to be purified. And so that's where this comes from. Lando took a photograph of me in our bathtub, which is where that arc is coming from, sort of like an apse. And we had colored the water in our bathtub using like these Crayola.
They're for children to have, I want a red bath today. So you just drop a few of those tablets in. But yeah, it gave this really nice look to where it almost gave a flaying too of the skin. And to me, at least when I look at it, I see a reapplication of skin over a raw body as she's rising out of the water. So it's, it's definitely talking about her, about your body, and how it's potentially being healed by this bath as you lift up out of it.
Right.
And you're leaving behind.
Regenerated.
Yeah.
I really like that you said. I'd forgotten how to look at it in that way, but it is like that. Like I'm skinless, except for the places where the skin has been applied afresh to my body. So yeah, there's something about revelation and renewal, I guess, and all those sort of associations that we have with bathing and with baptism. I think so much of the inner voice all gets sort of, our inner voices are getting negotiated on the surface of the paper at all times. We're trying to sort of find each other through these conversations, and hopefully there is the revelation of something that is very
Healing or
within.
spiritual in some way happening as a result of it, or that it's visible to people.
Yeah. The cool thing about having a show is that you get reintroduced to your own work in a new context, and you're able to see it in ways that you just couldn't before. So.